Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Vivid Voltage, make sure you go ahead and check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using the code Omnipoke. For today's video, we are going to be looking over another week of online tournament results. This should bring us up to the 25th of November. You can go back and watch the previous video to see the first week of the Vivid Voltage meta, and hopefully now we're going to start seeing things take shape. In the second week now, I think more people would have had a much better chance to actually get the cards they want to play with, so there shouldn't really be that barrier for the newer decks right now. If you want to play Colossal, if you want to play Orbital, if you want to play Whimsicott Tool Drop, you have those options to you. So this is going to be a pretty accurate portrayal of where the meta's at right now. We'll see what decks have been doing well, and we've got a total for the Vivid Voltage tournaments. There's been 17 that I'll have discussed today and yesterday in total. So yeah, lots of tournaments to go over, lots of deck lists to talk about, what I like, dislike, and stuff like that. Some will be carried over, like there are plenty of players jumping into as many tournaments as possible right now, so hopefully it doesn't get too overlapping with deck lists. I'll try and scooch straight on to the next one if it's something familiar. But yeah, some interesting deck lists here. I've had a quick look over the standings, and yeah, some things to talk about for sure. So we will start off with the Limitless Online Series weekly. This is their a pretty big event. I think it's an over 200 player event. Yeah, over 200 player tournament. And it was won by Eternatus, which is pretty cool. Whoops. I've already clicked the wrong thing. Okay. So yeah, Eternatus, it was kind of like a big question mark whether or not Eternatus would be surviving in this format with the potential fear of fighting decks. But looks like a poison build was able to take the win here. It's really having no respect to any fighting decks, which is fine because Eternatus... Oh, sorry, because Colossal isn't all that popular. Also, we've seen so much Center Scorch in the early weeks of Vivid Voltage that the poison build of Eternatus is very, very solid against. So that's definitely something that you could be bearing in mind. But yeah, this is just a very, very solid example of a straightforward poison Eternatus list trying to do what it does best. And yeah, there's like no greed in the 60 at all. I think it's just a solid, solid example of a simple and effective strategy from Scott here to take the win with Eternatus. And to be honest, Eternatus is just in a decent spot. Surprisingly, it got to the the final to face a Dragapult, which you wouldn't really expect too much. But this was a pretty spicy Dragapult deck. It's playing a couple copies of Lycanroc GX, as well as Aurora Energies. The Lycanroc GX provides energy removal and type coverage because of those Auroras. You can go for the, I think it's Splintered Shards GX for a 30 times multiplier on the amount of energy in your opponent's discard pile. So hopefully, with Crushing Hammers, Yell Grunts, and Lycanroc usage alongside Devo Spray Z, you can have a chance against Eternatus. Now, it wasn't enough to win in the finals, but, you know, anything can happen in, like, one series of Pokemon, so yeah, the theory is still solid. Fighting typing still very good against Picoram as well, which could also help out the Dragapult. So I've experimented with this in the past, and I always thought it was a little bit clunky. There's a lot of spaces being committed to not consistency. But I mean, and I'm not a big fan of just playing 3 research, just 3 Marnie. I would like to buff those counts out a little bit, and the energy count is also pretty low, which is also a big Achilles heel of Dragapult. If you miss your early game attachments, the deck feels very, very slow. So I feel like there's a lot all jammed into one deck list here. I think the Bird Keepers seem very weak to me. I would probably just reduce those to increase the research and Marnie counts because they're stronger draw supporters for you to hit your outs in the first place. I like the addition of Dreamy Revelation. That seems okay. But I would definitely look to have some more energies in here. I'd probably just drop 1 Incense to be another com as well, just for extra access to Dedenne and Crobat for those opening turns. Because, like I keep saying, missing your energy drops is like, it's hell for Dragapult. It was always a thing I hated. So having a low count kind of makes me pretty nervous. You could also eat into the Devo Spray Z count if you really want to. I think 2 copies is like kind of fine. But yeah, the Splintered Shards GX is a underutilized GX attack right now, so identifying that has been pretty cool to see, and it may end up being better than the Clefable Pult that we've been recently well, we've become accustomed to, just because Scoop Up Net has more synergy with Prankish than Devo Spray Z. But you're basically doing the same thing. So, yeah, the type coverage is strong right now. So maybe Dragapult is the new best fighting deck in the format. We'll have to see. Danny was able to top 4 with Welder Mewtwo. I think he's been playing this in a number of the online tournaments. And yeah, this is similar to one that we saw in a prior week. Don't think there's too much different here. He seems to be happy with his shell, and it seems to be working for him quite nicely. Just playing the one Amazing Rare Jirachi now. I think there was a point where he played 2 copies, maybe weaving in Greninja just for some wall breaking potential. But yeah, Welder Mewtwo is still doing okay, and it won't be the only time we see Welder Mewtwo today, I don't think. Also in the top 4 was Picoram. Picoram seemed to be completely fine in this format as well, and this again looks like a very straightforward shell, playing Tapu Koko V rather than Vikavolt V. I do feel Vikavolt is quite solid. It can help out a lot against like your Blowns and most importantly things like Whimsicott. Well, not most importantly, but it really helps the Whimsicott matchup. It's like a 1-card win condition basically. Otherwise, like right now, this is really straightforward. It's playing no Mewtwo's either. We saw week 1, a lot of people were weaving in 1 copy or 2 copies of Mewtwo into their Picoram list just to have something that they can attack with against the Colossal. But it's already like gone out the list because Colossals at the moment like seeing not a lot of play and not having huge results behind it. My sort of thought process is there's going to be an up and down curve of like people disrespect Colossal enough for it to actually do well, and then people put the text back in and Colossal gets way worse. So yeah, it's an interesting one to follow. For me, it's slightly surprising to not see 1 Mewtwo. I think 1 Mewtwo is kind of good anyway, because there are going to be situations, especially with the Mewtwo deck and the Welder Mewtwo decks, that are definitely sticking around in this format. There's going to be situations, especially if you go second as Picoram, if you can electrify to Picoram and Full Blitz and like play your game plan without popping your Dance of the Ancients, there can be situations where your one-off Mewtwo then just goes like, there's a turn like in the late game or whatever, where you get a burst surprise knockout just because you play a Mewtwo and you Dance of the Ancients onto it, attach to it, and you switch to it. And it sounds like a like heavy combo, but it's not actually that many pieces that then just like lets you burst 300 out of nowhere with Mewtwo. So I kind of like that being in Picoram as well, just because there's a good amount of Mewtwo still sticking around. So yeah, interesting to see no Mewtwo there. But it, you know, at the same merit, it can be a liability against those Mewtwo's if you happen to start with it. So yeah. Also in the top 8, there was 2 ADPs, a Senti, and another Eternatus. So not a bad tournament for Eternatus at all. We then have the Hegster. This is another one of the larger events. It was 154 players, and it was won by ADP Zacian, whatever you want to call it. And wow, okay, so this is playing Berserkers in the list as well. A 2-2 line of Berserker, not playing Leons. I thought about playing a Turbo Zacian that was playing Leon and Berserker, just to reach that higher damage cap. To me, it feels really weird to play Berserker but not Leon. It feels like it makes sense to play one or the other, but it also makes sense to play both, because then you can actually like one-shot Center Scorch, maybe, or something like that. The biggest upside of Berserker is the Meowth, I think, actually, because it lets you have extra discard synergy for sources to be live in the early turns. There's basically, I don't see any reason why Berserker would be good now if it wasn't good before, you know? I don't think there's any new math that it's fixing, especially when you're not playing Leons anyway. So, just on the face of things, I'm not a huge fan of this. But hey, it's still ADP. So ADP can win any tournament, anytime. So, yeah, there's a Berserker line for you, just to test out. I'm not the biggest fan, though. We do also see a Decigoons. So Berserker actually helps the Decigoons matchup. I wonder if that helped him win the series against this matchup. Whoa, this list is wild. It's playing one of the Champions Path Obstagoons. Never do that. I think that's such a bad idea. Oh my god, he's playing a 2-2 Goons. Oh. This is like maximum greed, I feel. This feels maximum greed. The Mimikyu is a nice tech. There's a lot of Mewtwo around. I respect that. You have to play Mew. You have to play Fion. 4 Rosa is a lot of Rosa. I don't know how much I like this list. I like the high capture count, at least. The biggest thing that sticks out to me as a space is obviously the Champion's Path Obstagoon, which I think is very poor in the deck. Interesting. But yeah, we haven't seen much. Like, Age of Slash was played week 1 in ADPs, but is it actually worth still playing? Like, I don't know. So, Decigoons will still be a factor, I think, in the format. Just saying. But there's also a natural high amount of Center Scorch, which can make it a lot worse. So, kind of like mixed opinions on that. A very standard Luke Metal also made top 4. Yeah, there's no surprises with this list. It's playing Crushing Hammers, I guess, is the only like thing that you don't always see with Luke Metal, but they seem good in the format. So yeah, good list there. And then a top 4 also for Eternatus. So again, Eternatus on a bit of an increase in these results. I think after seeing where Colossal landed in week 1, then you can start bringing back the Eternatus. But okay, so this is an Eterna Hammers list. So this is, unlike the Poison build that we just saw, this is a straight Eternatus, but rather than playing Scoop Up Nets for your Zigzagoons, you're just playing the Zigzagoons as they are, hoping it can be enough to like get through Big Charmed ADPs or whatever, and then you play the Crushings. So interesting to see 0. Oh wow, it only plays 2 Switch as well. 2 Switch feels so greedy to me. Yeah, 2 Switch. It sounds like you can miss out on attacks quite a lot with only 2 copies of Switch. That's kind of brave. I think. I like how thick the ball search count is, even though you're still playing hammers, because that's normally one of the corners you cut. Playing stamps as well. Double. Wow. So okay. So it's again. It feels quite low on the energy count. This is similar to Dragapult, what I was saying. When you miss your energy count, your energy drops, you feel really sad. Not even playing 1 copy of Capture or even 1 copy of Special Dark. Maybe he's thinking that Giratina's too popular and just basic energies is the way to go, which is certainly reasonable. The switch count is what makes me the most nervous, I would say. Playing 4 boss when you're playing 2 gears, kind of interesting as well. Especially when you can half control the board with Crushing Hammers. I don't know, I feel like I'd like an extra energy and an extra switch into this 60. But Eternatus Hammers was the initial way when the card was first released. That was my favorite way of playing it. I only played 3 Crushing Hammers though, because I wanted the space for the other things. But it's cool to see Eterna Hammers getting a little highlight in there. ADP, Welder Mewtwo, Senti, and Luke Metal were also rounding out the top 8 for the Hexter. Next up, we have the Coffee Cup. This was a very small tournament, so take this with a pinch of salt. Just 28 players. So we'll just look at the finalists, I guess. It was won by ADP. I did want to talk about the tournament mainly because of the second place list, though, because it's pretty spicy. But this is okay. So this list is playing Aegis/V. It's playing Leon as well. I think this is becoming a new norm as well. A lot of ADPs have dropped Swell altogether because there's so much Swell already in the format. Like, what's the point in putting Swell down when you're up against Picoram that plays Swells, Mewtwo that plays Swells anyways? Like, well, the Lightning build of Mewtwo and Mirror would play Swell or nothing a lot of the time, or they play Viridian, which helps you anyways. It's like you're only losing percentage points against the Welder decks, and it's like basically Baby Blounds and Senti. I mean, I would still think about playing a Swell personally, but I think I'd play like 1 copy rather than like a higher count. But yeah, I really like Leon. 40 switch is quite high compared to 4. Yeah. 40 switch is quite high, but there we go. Seems fine. Still playing Big Charms. Yeah, decent list for sure. I mean, I'm always nitpicking because I want to make the most out of every deck slot, which I think you should always strive to do. So you should always be questioning the cards that you're looking at and really think hard about every single include. So that's why you're seeing me be like ultra critical of everything, because I want to get the most mileage out of everything. So it was a Whimsicott Porygon Z deck that came second in this tournament, and the new include is Snorlax. So because you get to play 4 captures in this deck, you can pay retreat out of Porygon or Cottony to Gourmandize early. So you're not reliant solely on Toy Box GXing to get you to your Candy Porygon. You're hoping that Gourmandize in the early turns can help you get there, which is like a new improvement to the deck, I guess you could say. It still has all of its normal issues. Aurora is a big downgrade from old Fairy unit energies. And even Rainbows, to be honest. But yeah, it was cool to see this doing well. Well, in a small tournament, but still, you know, got some dubs in there, so that's pretty spicy. Well done to Ukes, who was playing that. Next up, we have the Sunday Open on the 22nd of November. Again, won by Eternatus, so a great week for Eternatus so far. Let's see if we're looking at Poison. Yeah, we're looking at Poison build once again. This is the exact same list that I looked at before, right? Or it's like 1 or 2 cards off. Simple, effective Eternatus doing bits, which is cool. And actually beats the Luke Metal in the finals, so it shows you that Poison build does have what it takes to be able to win that matchup. This Luke Metal specifically wasn't playing Hammers, and I think that's also a big deal. I think if Luke Metal plays Hammers, it will definitely help out the Eternatus matchup, no doubt. Again, not too many differences from this list pre and post the release of Vivid. It's just Coating Metal is the obvious include that just goes into decks, but there you go. Also in top 4 was another Luke Metal. Is this going to be looking like the same thing? So this one's making the space for Hammers. I think you normally play around with like support accounts and you play an extra like Stadium if you don't play Hammers. They're kind of flexible cards, so it's up to you if you want to flip coins or not. And then it was a Mewtwo that made top 4. Again, not too much to say about this list. Not playing Vikavolt. It's going to be one of those things that you monitor if you think Whimsicott's popular enough, or if you're scared of Whimsicott enough, I guess, whether or not you want to include that in your 60. But it feels solid as it is right now. 1 spicy E-switch. Wild times ahead. Okay. And then also in the rest of the top 8 was... rounding out the top 8 was another Mewtwo, another Eternatus, a Senti, and a Baby Blound. So Senti's doing a lot worse than it was previously, so far in the standings at least. Next up we have the E&D's Season 2 Qualifier 2. It was won by Baby Blacephalon. This is playing 18 Fire Energies. So really high raw energy counts is becoming more of the norm, I think, in Baby Blacephalon. I think last format we kind of sat on 15 and everyone was like pretty happy that like, yes, 15 is the number. And now with most recent successful Blounds, it's floated between 17 and 19 has been where it's sort of landed at right now. Interestingly, playing a double V in the deck, I think there's some skepticism around Reshizard going forward because there's the fear that Leon can just bop you if you're up against those ADPs, and I think Reshizard previously was good into ADP because you could have Double Blaze tempo knowing that you just wouldn't die, and now you can die, which then gives up the 4 prizes. So Double being a 2 prize option instead, being more safe in some regard. I'm still a believer of the Reshizard personally, but you just have to be more careful of when you weave him in or whatever. But yeah, this is looking pretty okay. Still not playing Zigzagoon in the list. Has Zigzagoon just fallen out of favor? I still feel like it's really good whenever I play Blounds. Seems really good to me still. A lot of people aren't playing it though in recent times. Maybe the board just fills up too quickly. Kind of depends. This is also playing Ornery Rod for some extra recycle, which is kind of fine when you don't play any energy retrievals. Having the Ordinary Rod to at least put them back into your deck seems okay. This isn't playing Marshadow either. It's another like 1 prizer that I'd certainly consider in Blounds, because it lets you do funky things. Like even if you're not up against, like if it's obviously good against Swell, which is like a huge thing, but it also lets you do some funky stuff with like if you've been allowed to have a Hearth in turn for 1 player, you can Marshadow Hearth, which is pretty cool. So yeah, interesting list though. Is Double becoming the new one of like Reshizard type card in the deck? We'll see. Picoram came in second place, and it is playing the Welder Mewtwo that I mentioned a few times. It's actually playing Leon in the list as well, which is pretty spicy. You can Lightning Ride GX for full value for 280 if you play a Leon. You can just get you some extra surprise burst damage as well in random spots. I don't know how much I like it, but you are playing the Eldegoss, and you do draw a lot of cards with Picoram, so maybe it catches people off guard here and there. You do miss a lot of the reach that you used to have with the deck. Also, tag bolting with Leon just for the 230 is good into a lot of Vs, so there's a couple of good breakpoints of damage where I can see that being useful. It feels niche, but you can weave it in spots, and maybe it is that get out of jail free card when, even if you binned it early, you can Eldegoss it later. Yeah, I'm not against it. Like, that's the thing. Leon's like a good enough card, especially in a deck that has a lot of different attacks available to it, that you'll find spots all the time where it's like, wait, Leon's perfect here. So it's like, it's just one space, and it gives you so much flexibility in so many situations when you have this many different attackers all in one deck, that it kind of makes sense. So I can't hate on it too much. A Mad Party made it all the way to 6-2-1 and came top 4. You love to see it. Nothing changes with Mad Party. It doesn't even play any new cards. So, I mean, yeah. Good job. Good job, I guess. That's a Mad Party list if you want to keep playing with that deck. And then we see another top 4 for the Berserker build of ADP. Wild. Completely wild. Like, my logic is maybe flawed because I'm just thinking, if it never worked before, why would it work now? But I mean, I also think that's kind of good logic. In the rest of the top 4, or sorry, top 8 was another ADP, 2 more Blounds and Eternatus, so not a bad event for the Blounds. Next up, the Hexter Season 3, number 9. This is another one of the larger ones, 175 players in this tournament, and it was won by a Picoram. And let's have a quick look at this. This is, again, pretty normal, pretty down to earth. It's playing the Crushing Hammers. I don't think, was the Leon build playing Crushing Hammers? I didn't pay attention. It may have just, I think the Leon build wasn't playing Crushings. I think it just had like higher speed energy and a few other counts here and there. I can't remember, to be honest with you. But there you go, Picoram able to take another win. It seems to be completely fine in the format. It was playing the Mewtwo, so respecting Thingy a little bit. Here's an ADP that is playing Crogonal and Fione, which is pretty interesting. Crogonal, obviously very good. It insta-wins your Whimsicott matchup, for one thing. It helps out against Baby Blounds as well, to an extent. It stops them crystalling through you, so you can buy a turn here or there, which is okay. Playing Leon as well, so you can... yeah, you can actually Frozen Lock for a KO when you play Leon in this deck as well against a Blound. That's pretty scary. That is pretty scary. That sounds insane, actually, thinking about it now. Which is pretty wild. And otherwise, it seems fine. So yeah, Crogonal, if you care about Whimsy and want to improve your Blound matchup while still playing Viridians, I respect that a lot. I respect it. Don't know if I'd play it, but I certainly respect it. I like, I think the one scrapper's becoming like staple as well for Picoram. I think, oh, sorry, for ADP. I think that mostly because there's enough Picoram and enough Luke Metal, probably. Man, scrapper's just, it's like just on the edge of being good enough to be played. It's like, I'm kind of against it, but it's like just on that edge where it gets you just enough value. Another Poison Eternatus, again. Not too much difference between this list and the one that we saw previously. It plays 1 less Dark City for 1 extra hiding, which, again, these are all fine counts. And then we have another ADPZ in the top 4. This one's playing a Zamazenta as its spicy include. This is the list that's playing Double Scrapper 3 Big Charm. This is still going around, still being quite popular, still doing well. I think the amount of... It's surprising to me the amount of variation that we're seeing with ADP specifically, because its game plan is always the same. Like, basically always the same. So seeing still this amount of variance tells you that the game plan of ADP is just nuts. And, like, because you can draw so many cards anyway with the deck, like, to an extent, like, 5 or 6 of the cards you can just fritter on anything you want because it's so good. But yeah, I mean, it's like some people are choosing to play techs for meta, some people are doing this, that, and the other. But yeah, it's interesting that ADP still hasn't got like a nailed on, this is how to play the deck kind of thing. There's still a lot of variation going on there. The Crollo tournament #1 was won by Baby Blacephalon, which is cool. This is playing 19 fires again, so the high energy count really is winning people over right now. And yeah, so it looks like the things that are falling off, well, no one's playing the Marshadow, which I keep mentioning, and no one's playing Zigzagoon, which I keep thinking about. But I guess there's just enough to denate anyway that you just play it. Cramorant pinging and Zigzagoon pinging Oricorio and Mirror is like pretty pog though, not gonna lie. Then again, you're not killing a Blound, so I don't know. Yeah, the high energy count seems to be the route for the Blounds. I'm surprised that, so 19 energies without energy retrievals, you may think is like just on the edge of not having enough, but I would think about adding in 1 or 2 spinners, to be honest with you, because you want to go second with Blounds in most matchups, I would say. And just the fact that it's Stellar Wishable alongside your Hearths just gets you that flow of energy more quickly. So I don't know, maybe spinner plus retrieval is better than just playing like a lower physical energy count. We'll see. Here is another successful ADP, this time playing Tapu Fini rather than Cryogonal. I feel now with Leon in the format, Cryogonal makes more sense than Fini to me, but at least you're still respecting Blounds to an extent, right? But Fini is really weird because it doesn't change what they have to beat you with, because they kill ADP, kill Fini, kill Zacian, whereas the Cryogonal is hoping to get its kill and survive. Fini is like, yeah, I'll just be dead, obviously, you know? Or you're trying to go ADP, Fini, ADP, but you're definitely putting down to Denes and stuff anyways, that they can Cramorant. So I don't think Fini actually helps the matchup. I think that's a pointless tech, to be honest. Or you're trying to like random boss kill with Fini in the early turns, but you're only playing 1 Marnie as well, so it's like you can't Fini Marnie hope that Fini survives. It just doesn't make sense. There's like not much logic with the actual 60, how the game's going to play out, that's going to work out for you. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Fini. But ADP is broken, so whatever. And you can see that the Fini didn't work, right? Because he lost in the finals. So it doesn't actually, the logic's just not there. Right, okay. 2 Centiskorch round out the top 4 for this tournament. He's playing the Giratina, playing no scoop up nets and no Jirachi of any kind though, just playing the you know, slam them down, draw your cards stuff. Playing 1 Big Charm. Is Big Charm worth it now that Eternatus is making a bigger uptick? Possibly 1 special fire is worth it in the deck again, for the same reasons. He's playing Malolana in the deck as well. We've seen that 1 supporter slot be Malolana, Birdkeeper, Sinlin, and Research, right? That one-of supporter slot is ever changing for people. But yeah, something to think about. And then finally we have 1 more Senti list. This one's playing the Birdkeeper as the one-off supporter. It's playing the Talonflame and the Zigzagoon. What number is Zigzagoon fixing? There's so many breakpoints of damage. It could be for all sorts. And he's playing Scoop Up Net, so again, it could be for even more things. Get him in range. Get him in line. Interesting stuff. Okay. Maybe just a mop-up approach as well. This list is playing Great Catcher as well, which you don't see a lot in the list. But there's some decent theory behind it. Welder Great Catcher can be game in a lot of situations. So, yeah. Okay, nice. Some Sentis still doing well. Then we have E&D's Thanksgiving qualifier, which was a smaller event. I want to say sub 100. Yeah, 63 people. It was won by Picoram. Picoram, I don't think there's... Like I said, people are pretty settled with their Picoram. Most of the time I've been talking about like 1 or 2 cards that people think about changing. This one's not playing Mewtwo, so I don't know why you play Cherish Balls when you don't play Mewtwo. I feel like the Cherish Ball edition was just because people play Mewtwo now. That doesn't make too much sense to me. Otherwise, it looks really solid. I'm a big believer of playing 4 Speed Lightnings, though. The card is too nutty to not play 4 copies. Personal preference. We have another Center Scorch. This one's playing Finny. Again, I feel like Finny's just being popped in, but people aren't actually thinking about it too much, you know? This list isn't playing Stamps either, so there's no way that Finny will save you against Blounds. They'll kill a Senti VMAX, they'll kill a Tapu Finny, and you can't Stamp or Disrupt them in any way, so they will just Cramorant kill your Dedenne. Yeah, the Finny include makes no sense when you play 0 Disruption. Play Finny if you play Disruption. So then hopefully the Finny lives, and then does the same thing again, and then you start taking control. It's just like, yes, it's a tech for Blounds, but think it through. Make the tech work for you, you know? Map out how they're going to try and beat you and where the Finny comes in to make it more difficult for them, you know? Or you're just going, sort of shrugging your shoulders against Baby Blounds and going, I'm going to try and beat them with the Finny, the Heatran, the Talonflame, and then like a late Center Scorch. But then the late Center Scorch would only work if you had Disruption anyways. Yeah, you need to play Stamps. You just have to. Very strange. Stamp would be better in every other matchup, and the Finny is like questionably maybe helpful in that one matchup that you're in air quotes stacking for. I don't know. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one, Chief. But hey, God second. Then we got Picoram in top 4 again. This one's playing the double Mewtwo. There's not much variation in Picoram now. People are pretty happy with it. And this is where you see the Cherish Ball radar split when you play Mewtwo's. That's where it does make sense. And then finally in top 4, we've got Luke Metal playing Hammers. So again, people are pretty established with that 60 as well for the most part. I feel like people know Picoram the most, Luke Metal the most. We've seen a good amount of variation in Center Scorch now. There's 2 different ways of playing Eternatus, but both of them kind of are set to like 58 or so cards. ADP is all over the place. Mewtwo is also like pretty set in stone in how people are playing it as well. It actually won the final tournament, the Pokemob Standard tournament as well. Okay, so this list is playing Gengar Mimi, which I don't think is Gengar Mimi always played? I honestly can't remember. And it's playing the Vikavolt, which you don't always see either, but I'm personally a fan of. But yeah, other than that. So the Mewtwo has like, again, 1 or 2 flexi spots. We then see a second place of the Welder Mewtwo. This looks very similar to the list that Danny was piloting as well, but this is just playing no amazing rare Jirachis whatsoever. It's just playing, you know, your classic Dedenne, Crobat, Gear, Root. When you play Dedenne, Crobat, Gear, I'm kind of a fan of playing 4 copies of the Mewtwo, because you just don't want to start with those boys. But otherwise, this looks really solid. Playing a super high switch count. Another Mewtwo in top 4. And let's see if there's any variation here. Most people are just net decking the good stuff. The difference here is you're playing a Keldeo GX. Potential type coverage for one thing. And a Wall Breaker alongside Greninja, I guess. And a Resolute Blade GX attack, which is good against Eternatus as well. Pretty spicy. I mean, Keldeo is a pretty good card, so I can't argue with that too much. Just the fact that it's going to take that double Aurora cost, which is a little bit awkward. And then also in top 4 was an Eternatus VMAX deck. And the Poison's been winning out this week by the looks of things. Most of the lists that we've seen in the top 4s have been the Poison build. I think there was a Hammer list and then one other list that was just playing Pings. But for the most part, it's Poison coming out on top. And I think mostly that's a reaction to week 1 where Center Scorch was like really popular. And it's like, you know what's really good against Center Scorch? The Poison build specifically of Eternatus. And yeah, that's true. Also in the top 8, we had Senti, ADP, and double Blounds to round things out. So that was the tournaments from between the 20th and the 25th. So that takes me almost up to date. I'm going to try and do this every Friday, so I get the previous weekends all the way up to that Friday, and then we'll get the next weekends going onward. So I'm going to try and schedule this for Fridays, guys. Fridays slash Saturday mornings, which is when I'm doing it now. So, I mean, to be fair, a lot of people do things on a Friday. So, yeah, maybe I'll release them Saturday mornings. Maybe that makes more sense, because I'm sat here on a Saturday morning doing exactly this right now. So, yeah. Anyways, here's the total breakdown for this week between the 20th and the 25th. Not too many huge differences as you go back to the previous week. Eternatus had the biggest uptick compared to week 1, where it had only 2 placements in the tournaments. Now it's had 9 total placements, including 2 wins, which is pretty big. Picoram's been pretty steady Eddie. So has Luke Metal. The top 3 decks have remained the top 3 in terms of total placements: Blound, Senti, and ADP. And Welder Mewtwo also had a small rise in popularity as well compared to the previous week. You can see the Eternatus only had 2 placements the week before. Welder Mewtwo only had 2 placements, and the top 3 were still the top 3. Luke Metal and Picoram were just tailing behind previously, and that's the exact same this week. But the total, the running total right now, the most number of placements is ADP still. Centiskorch still at the second most, and then Blound still at third most. And Luke Metal, Picoram, and now Eternatus and Mewtwo, as well as Welder Mewtwo. So Mewtwo variants, if you lump Mewtwo variants as well, they like jump up to like Blound level of play. So in theory, it's like ADP decks, Centiskorch decks, Baby Blound decks, Mewtwo decks, Welder or Mewtwo. Both are type coverage based, so they're trying to do similar things, just like dirt, hit for weakness. And at the same time, I have a Mewtwo that can do everything in different situations. And then it's Picoram, Eternatus, and Luke Metal all in that like 1.5 tier, which is like just below those top 5 decks. So yeah, that's a good portrayal. I think there's been a couple extra placements for some random decks here and there. We saw a Spiritomb, a Mad Party, a Whimsy, a Decigoons. Did we look at the Spiritomb list? I can't remember if I even looked at that today. Huh, interesting. Did I just miss that out? I can't remember what tournament it was, but I had stats on Spiritomb. I think it was just the bottom of a top 8 or something, but I don't remember mentioning it. Weird. Maybe I accidentally deleted the tab. But I think we spoke about pretty much everything else. Okay. But yeah, so far we're looking at 17 total tournaments. I've only kept it as placements right now, guys. I did have a comment on the previous video, which said, what about adding in CP for these? Like where each of these, how much each of the decks received. But I haven't decided yet what cutoff I want to do for CP, because I feel like not all of the events are equal. There are some that are like sub 50 players, some that are like 100 or so players, and some that are over 200, getting to 300 now. Especially like, I think the ones just happening a couple days ago got to 300 or so. Yeah, 277. So I should weight these things a little bit more. So I was thinking of an arbitrary number at like 128 and below of being League Cup CP, and then anything above that would be regional CP. So let me know your thoughts on that. Would you like to see it weighted in a certain way? Because I think that makes more sense than just having everything in every column being like the same CP, because a win in a 270 player tournament shouldn't be the same as a win in a 50 player tournament. You guys can all understand that. So yeah, I'll hear your thoughts down below on that. I hope you did enjoy this extension, the second part of the video, of this series, and we're going to be following the Vivid Voltage meta as we go in the online stuff. I still haven't played like any online tournaments. I don't know if I'm dipping my toe in yet or not. We'll kind of see. I'm still kind of like not super motivated to play the tournaments, but as they're actually starting to get bigger and bigger, I'm thinking like, yeah, this is cool to play in like 300 player tournaments again. It's getting back to the like the Limitless qualifier series, which was a ton of fun. So yeah, we'll see what I do with the online stuff. Let me know if you guys have been enjoying playing online tournaments as well, or if you just don't have the same motivation as you would for IRL. Yeah, that's it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you tomorrow for another one. Cheers.